Flosstube, welcome back to Bumble Stitches. My name's Nicola and this is my YouTube channel where I share all my cross-stitching projects with you all. Today is a little bit of a different episode from my normal Flosstube episodes. Today I'm going to be sharing a WIP Parade with you, and I'm sure lots of you love WIP Parades, I know I do. If you're not sure what a WIP Parade is, if you're fairly new to cross stitch or to Flosstube, WIP is a work in progress. So these are all the projects that have been started and aren't finished, so just works in progress. There's quite a few of them. I was a little bit shocked when I sorted them all out this morning to share with you. So yeah, it's just a way of sharing everything that's sitting in my basket of WIPs, which I have got here, which is looking like that at the moment. It's actually quite heavy. Now this doesn't include my Christmas WIPs, which I've been working on for Christmas in July. I've got those here, so there's a few extra projects there, but I won't be going through those because I did do that actually on my last proper Flosstube episode, which was episode 19. And just so that you know, I will be back next week with my episode 20 of Flosstube, where I'll have the giveaway winners from the last episode, things like that. So this is purely just a WIP Parade today. So I'm just going to pause for a second, pop these down, get everything out of the basket, and then we will get on with the parade. Okay, the basket is now empty and I've got a big pile here next to me on the sofa. If you're a regular viewer, you will be used to me sitting the other way around here in the conservatory with the garden behind me, but I thought, seeing as this was a little bit more of a special episode, it'd be nice to just sit and have a chat with you on the sofa here. So I've got a big pile, as I said, here next to me, and the plan is as I go through, they will pass this way. I will show you the WIP, and then I'm going to pop them back in the bags and back in the basket, because otherwise it will be the absolute worst cross-stitching mess known to history. So let's pop that down, and my hair keeps sticking to my lip gloss, so that's a little bit annoying, isn't it? These are in no particular order. There's some very old ones, some that you might have seen quite recently. So I'm just going to grab a bag and we'll go through them all. Okay, so some are in pretty project bags and some are just in these little bags that I picked up from Amazon, which are really a good idea if you've got a lot of WIPs, or if you don't have any fancy project bags yet, just to keep your WIPs nice and tidy in. So this first one is All Creatures Great and Small, excuse the dogged pattern, and this is a beautiful pattern by Barbara Anna Designs, and I'm going to hold it up close to the camera so hopefully you can see that. And there is so much detail in this project, I absolutely love it. So let's have a look at how I got on with this. Now this was quite an old WIP, this one, and I've got my little board down here so I can show you. And I haven't ironed any of these, they're just coming out of the bag exactly as they are. So we'll see what kind of disarray they're in. Smooth it out a little bit so you can see my progress on that. And this is a piece of 32 count Zweigart Murano that I dyed myself. You can see it's got quite heavy mottling, and that always seems to show out much more in the camera lens than it does in real life. So I made a bit of progress. You can see I always tend to start in the top left hand corner of any design, and it's the animals and the little people on this that really get me. They are so super cute. Love this cow. It's got a little, looks like a seagull or a dove on its back, the little hair. So absolutely beautiful. I didn't leave much of a border here. I was a little bit scared of running out of fabrics. It's quite a big piece, but I think I probably should have started a little bit lower down, but I think it will work out fine. And for this piece I am using a big tangle of threads, it would seem. These are all the called for DMC. I think it might have actually called for anchor, but I've got a DMC conversion. I'll have to check on that if anyone needs to know specifically. So that is project number one. I'm going to try and take the time to just quickly fold these up and pop them back in the bags. As I said, I really don't need that massive big mess at the end of the video to try and sort out. Okay, so that's number one. The next project, this is very sadly living just in a little Ziploc bag. This is Harlequin Cove by Brenda Gervais. And I hope that isn't too glary if I hold the pattern up like that. So you can see a really, really cute little Easter bunny with a little gingham pinafore, and she's even holding a little bunny basket. I started this as a stitch along with my friend Leslie from Duckpool Lane, and I think she finished hers, but of course I got distracted and didn't. So I've got quite a small start on this one. It really is a small start. This is a 36 count linen that I'm stitching this on, and you can see I didn't get much further than it, and it really looks odd, doesn't it? This is a little bit of her, where's the pattern gone? It's a little bit of her pinafore dress and just going down to the bottom. No, I've got it upside down, haven't I? What a silly Billy. Let's turn it the right way. So can we see now? Yeah, this is the bottom of her head, sort of the top of her dress, and going down the pinafore straps and into her skirt. So I need to do quite a bit more on that one. And I'm using for this all the bit of stray floss there. I think this is going to be a bit of a theme. These are all the called for this, and they're all Weeks Dye Works, Gentle Arts and Classic Colour Works. It was actually quite a lot of different colours for such a small project, as you can see. So yes, that will probably make its way to the front of the pile again round about next springtime, I would imagine. Okay, moving on. Another one of these little Amazon bags, and this was part of my Pocket Full of Posies stitch along, which I know a lot of you joined in with and created some beautiful pieces of work. And if I could just get the image of the pattern out to show you, and this is Spring Violets by Hands Across the Sea, and you can see what a pretty little pillow this one is. Really, really gorgeous with a lovely little verse on it. And mine is stitched on, I believe it's a 32 count cream Zweigart linen, Edinburgh linen, and you can see quite a tiny start. But it was a really fun stitch at the time, and again, you just get distracted by other things, don't you? These are all the DMC threads that I'm using for this particular one. You can see the lovely yellows there and all the really pretty purples and violets. So that was, I think, number 3 so far, project number 3. And I popped a little post on my Instagram this morning showing the basket and just letting you all know that I was going to be filming the WIP Parade video today, and asking you to have a little guess at how many WIPs I had in the basket, excluding my Christmas WIPs. So we'll see what the total is when we get to the end of this video. It was just for fun, and also please let me know in the comments below this video how many WIPs you've got, just to make me feel a little bit better about how many projects I've actually started. Okay, next up is, this is a bag that I made a while ago. Actually, I don't think, this is not actually a WIP, this is something that I've kitted up. Shall I show you anyway? It's the Winds of Autumn booklet that came out from Blackbird Designs last year, and I've got in here kitted up, and it is only a tiny little kit. I'm just trying to find the right page. It's this one here, which is Spell of the Moon. Really gorgeous design, and I've popped in here some, I've even made a note, it's a little piece of 28 count Zweigart Cashel linen. I know that's reflecting a bit, so it's the Cashel. And the called for equivalent in DMC. So I've got these flosses here ready to go on that. I would like I would have liked to stitch that on a fabric with a bit more mottling, so it was a bit more moody and Halloweeny like the actual the model in the magazine, but I didn't want to buy extra linen for it, so I thought I would make use of what was in stash, and I think once it's stitched onto this piece, I think it will be actually really, really cute. And it's a small anyway, so I think it will still look really pretty as part of some Halloween decorations. Okay, so let's not count that as a WIP because it isn't actually started yet. Okay, what is next? It's another one of these little bags here. The zip was a bit sticky on that one. And this again was part of my Pocket Full of Posies stitch along. And this one, if I just take the patterns out, I think, because I don't like the way they're glaring on the camera. And this one is, have to remind myself, all the pretty flowers from Heartstrings Samplery, designed by Beth Twist. And this is such a lovely soft colour palette. Really, really pretty. And progress on this one, I mean, this is quite a small. Why I don't just keep this one out and get a finish on it, I don't know. You can see I've made a start on the basket and the flowers, so it's coming along quite nicely, but of course it won't get any further if I don't actually stitch on it. And this one again, I think from memory I'm using all the called for, or as close to the called for as I had in stash. So this one is Brethren Blue, which I think was quite hard to get hold of at one point, and Cinnamon Toast, Honeycomb, Olive and Mocha there. So a really nice soft colour palette. And the linen that I'm using was actually a 32 count piece of Sajou linen, but it is a little bit gauzy for my liking. If I hold it up without the board, you'll see it's a very, you can almost see me through it, it's a very transparent sort of loosely woven linen. But I think once it's stitched up and finished into a little pillow, it will still look really pretty. Might just need a little bit of like a muslin underneath it, I think, just to stop any of the polyester filling coming through. So that is where we're up to. I think that's number 4. As I edit this, I think it might be wise if I pop along the bottom of the screen the number of the project, and also I'll make a note of the name of the design and the designer in case you get tempted and need to add any of these to your WIP collections as well. So I've lost the bag for this, so the wheel is already falling off the plan to keep tidy. Okay, moving on, and it's another one of these little bags, and I thought I had so many handmade bags, but it appears I've still got quite a few projects in these. And this is, I think this is another Pocket Full of Posies start, and this one is Forget Me Not, and it's another small pretty pillow design by Beth Twist, Heartstrings Samplery. Really, really lovely. I didn't have any blue linen for this one, so I went for, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a 36 count linen. It's quite heavily mottled. This wasn't dyed by me. I think this is it's either Seraphim or, I think it might be Seraphim, or it might be Weeks, but I can't actually remember. I will look it up if anyone needs to know desperately. So I thought if I start and get most of the design over here, I'll just have a little bit of a border of the mottling. And I'm stitching that one, just one strand of floss over 2 of the linen. And again, it's a really pretty little stitch. And this is, if I can find the flosses, I think these are also called for flosses. So I just pop them on there. And these are all Weeks Dye Works. So not too many colours on this one. So if you wanted to stitch it, you don't need to find too many colours of the over dyed flosses for it. So that's Forget-Me-Not. I hope I'm not going too quickly, and I'm realising now that I've started this video that I should have brought a drink with me because I'm doing quite a lot of talking. So I'll pop that one back, and I've already lost count, but as I said, I will pop a running total along the bottom of the screen. Okay, next up, this is a project bag that was a gift from a lovely viewer a while ago, and I think I've got a couple of things in here, but I think only one of them is a WIP. So if I get this out, and this is a very old WIP that I should have finished, but don't know why. Why do we get to that point sometimes where you love a project and you're stitching on it, and then for whatever reason you just stop stitching on it? I think it's normally because something else comes along, isn't it? This is Practically Perfect in Every Way by Lily Violet, and you can find her on Etsy. This was a PDF download, and you can see her finish of the project there with lovely Mary Poppins and the London skyline there. And Mary Poppins is actually, I would say, probably in my top 5 favourite films of all time. I absolutely love it, and it's one of those films that I can watch, doesn't matter when it's on, I could just sit and watch it. So I think we've all got films like that, haven't we, that they just have a place in your heart. And this is my progress on Mary Poppins. So you can see I finished her and her pretty umbrella. It's not the one from the film where she's got the lovely parrot head handle, but really, really cute and instantly recognisable as Mary Poppins. And as I showed you on the pattern here, there's a full outline and then the text, Practically Perfect in Every Way. I decided I wanted to use a 12-inch embroidery hoop, wooden one, to finish this. And I thought it would be really nice to shape it to the circle. So what I've actually done here, and the reason there are those white running stitches, is that I drew around, if you can see, in a chalk pencil, the outline of the hoop. Can't even follow the line with my finger in the camera. And then did a running stitch so I knew where to stitch up to and to keep that sort of circular shape. And I then just took a section of the skyline from the chart and moved it so it was close to Mary, and then would follow the circle here. And I'm just going to do another little section here so that she's sort of like coming down between the rooftops. But it's a lot of black stitching, and black stitching, it's a bit like black knitting or anything where you're working with a black floss or yarn. It's really quite hard on the eyes, especially in the evening. So, but this is quite a big count of fabric. I don't know where it came from. I would guess say it's probably a 25 count Lugana, but I bought it probably 2 or 3 years ago and just had it in my stash. And when I caught the cross stitching bug again, I just popped Mary on there. With hindsight, I think she would look much nicer in a smaller count, but I'm not going to discount the work I've already done. And I think once it's done here, this is all finished and it's put in a hoop, it will look really pretty. And I've got a little tiny scrap of sort of vintage white embroidery linen that I'm going to just embroider the Practically Perfect in Every Way, like a little patch almost, and just sort of sew it somewhere up here, so it's like a little label. So that's my Mary Poppins. And I haven't got any flossies in the bag with that one because all I need to do now is just fill in with black. Basically, I'm using a DMC 310 for that one. And just out of curiosity, what is actually in this bag? You can see there's some DMC floating around in the bottom. Don't think it's for cross stitch. I think, oh right, yeah, it was an embroidery floral alphabet sampler that I was going to do. And goodness knows when I'll ever get round to that one. So that is, oh, there's a little piece of, little vintage piece of embroidery linen that I was going to use for the label on that Mary Poppins piece. So at least I had the foresight to keep that safe in the bag as well. Right. I think doing quite well. There's still quite a lot to share. I hope this video isn't too long, although I must admit I quite like a nice long WIP video. Next one is, we're getting to some prettier bags now. This is a project bag made by me using my patchwork method, and I did do a tutorial on this, and I will pop a link to that video down in the description box below. I used some 2.5-inch squares of various Liberty of London fabrics, and this is their Tana Lawn, which is beautiful, and I just love every single print. And I just used a gold Essex linen as the rest of the bag. Okay, but what's inside? I can't actually even remember what's inside this bag. Ah, it is. I love this project. This is the good thing about these videos, you remember what you've got. This is Cross Stitch Nation by Heartstrings Samplery, and this was a PDF copy, which is why it probably looks a little bit different than some of the paper copies. And I started this as part of a stitch along that Laurie Holt was doing, and I don't know how Laurie's getting on with hers, but mine has kind of fallen by the wayside. So let's pop the pattern back in the bag and have a look at the stitching. I think this is a 36 count linen as well. I'm trying to get it nice and straight to show you. It's a bit creased and crunkled, but I did get some good progress on this one. I got the top border done all the way across, and the text, and made a start on the first little stitching lady there. And these are all the called for over dyed threads, or are they? Or have I added a few DMCs in there? I think I might have added a few DMCs in just to get as close as possible. And it's nice if you can do that, because it really does keep the cost down on your overall project. The over dye flosses are beautiful, but it can really bump the cost up, especially if there's a lot of colours. And especially as well, if you are like me and you've got a lot of WIPs going on and they're all sitting in bags, and of course these flosses are kind of redundant the whole time they're sitting in the bag, and you might end up having to buy similar or almost duplicates if you wanted to start something else. I think I'd get in a terrible muddle if I started borrowing flosses from projects and transferring them over. Unless I wrote it all down, I think it would get a little bit too confusing for me. So I like to keep everything in a bag until I'm working on it. So DMCs, for me, it's a really good way of having more floss, basically. I'm going to quickly check in my cross stitch journal. This is the one published by It's So Emma. And obviously you can pick these up at Fat Quarter Shop, but I got mine from So Hot UK in the UK. And essentially you've got a little bit in the front. You can write down who it belongs to and date when you started. And it's super handy because you've got an index at the front, and then you can number all your projects and write down all your information. So I'm just going to see if I did put, it's project number 19 in here. I did get out of the habit of writing all my projects in here, which wasn't very helpful. Right, yes, I do have this one. So this fabric here is a 32 count Dusty Road by Seraphim, and the floss is pretty much called for. I think there were a couple I couldn't get hold of at the time. There was a point last year when certainly overdye flosses were really, really difficult and getting in short supply here in the UK. So I just made substitutions for about 3 of them in this particular project. So that is I Belong to the Cross Stitch Nation. And super, super pretty. I think I'm going to have to rethink my rotation after doing this video and pull out some of these favourites and give them a little bit of stitchy love again. Okay, the next project that I have is in another handmade bag, and this was one of my first attempts at a quilted vinyl fronted bag, really simple. I think I used a tutorial that was by Riley Blake on their YouTube channel. And the project that lives in here is, I don't know the best way to show this, probably that way. Again, it was a PDF. So this is Spring, Celebrate Spring by Madame Chantilly. And there's a bit of a image there on the angle. And her tiered tray patterns are so pretty, but they are deceptively large. Once you start, you realise quite how much stitching there is to do. So this one, if I just unfurl, I think that covers the whole area that I've stitched. Okay, so this is how far I got with this. So the top tier of the tray with the bunny, still working on the flowers. I think I sort of fell out of love with this because the chart has got several pages, and it's got the greyed out few lines where the chart overlaps for you to move on to the next part of the chart. And my brain does not like trying to figure out that that greyed out area. It really throws me. So I think I was going to actually do a bit of cutting and sticking with some sellotape and just actually join the chart up to make it easier. But it's so pretty. I particularly like these little narcissus or daffodils in the pot. They are super pretty. I think this ends up being like a Ray Dunn style of mug. Little Bo Peep and her sheep, and the lovely little flowers in the jar there. And of course there's so much more to stitch down at the bottom. I'm stitching this particular project all in called for DMC. So you can see some really lovely colours going on here. And again, that will probably come out when Harrietta and Co comes out in time for the spring next year. And the fabric of this one, I'm thinking, is it in my book? I think it's a 28 count, but let me just double check. Can I find it in here? Number 9. I've just put down 28 count unknown linens. That's really helpful. Judging by the selvage with the orange thread running through it, it is a Zweigart linen. So looking at it now, I'd say it's probably a 28 count natural or raw linen from Zweigart. I really must get back into the habit though of using that book, because it is really handy, especially when you're you know, if you're making videos or sharing on Instagram, and you know, as stitchers we like to know, don't we, what's being used. If you want to replicate that yourself, or you think somebody looks particularly nice, it's nice to know what fabric you should be going for. The tidying is going really well actually, by the way. The pile's going down on this side and the basket's filling up on that side, so when I'm done all I have to do is pick it up and get cracking on the editing. Okay, shall we carry on then? The next project up is another one of my little homemade vinyl fronted bags, and it's a shame really because I made a few of these but the quality of the vinyl wasn't really very good. It's actually quite thin, not the nice thicker gauge vinyl that you can get from By Annie's, which I do have some of in my stash, so I might have to make some more of those. But in here I have got from Jacob at Modern Folk Embroidery, Real Comfort, a Jane Austen sampler. And I love this piece so much. I have plans for this to be framed and on the wall in the entry hall of our home, because I think it's such a lovely piece and it really has that sort of welcome home feel to it. Now this I have stitched on a 28 count fabric. I think it's a Zweigart Cashel. I'm going to pop this on the board. And you can see probably about a quarter of the way done, and because it's just one colour of floss, it's really easy. You don't have to worry about colour changes all the time. You can just load up a few needles and just really get your stitch on with this one. The floss that I'm using is DMC, and the colour is, if I can grab the spare skein that I have in here, it's colour 317. There's the colour that I'm using there. So again, a piece that I'm really keen to get back on board with. It's going to be quite big, I think, but I did buy a frame in IKEA some time ago that I thought would be perfect for it, so I think I'll have a go at framing that one myself and just lace it or pin it onto some foam core board. I know that Liz of Elizabeth Ann Can Stitch has got some fabulous tutorials for her framing that she does, and the pinning method is really effective, so I will be looking that up again when I get to do this. And if you need a bit of help with framing, do check out Liz's videos, because they are very good and always such good fun to watch as well. Next project up is in a really cute little project bag. This is like a little dinky size one, and this was a gift from Gems Stitchery, and this one has sparkly vinyl, super pretty, and some cute little birds on the back. And actually these smaller project bags are really handy if you're working on a chart that's one of the smaller size ones, because they're easier to transport if you want to take it out and about with you. Okay, let me get organised here and find the actual chart. I've got loose threads here and all sorts of things going on. Okay, so this is another heartstring samplery. You're probably getting the feeling by now that I really enjoy all of Beth Twist's designs, and there's a few more that I have got my eye on. And this is a token for my friend. Again, a really pretty little pillow. And I think this was this has a companion chart that goes with it, and I can't remember the name of it. And it was done in conjunction with another cross-stitch designer. I can't remember who it was. If I remember to look it up, I'll pop it down below. But you probably know, but it's a gorgeous piece. I'm stitching this on a 36 count linen with one strand of floss. And you can see how far I've got. Not very. And this looks very crumpled. I do hope that some of these hoop marks are going to come out when I eventually get to finishing. So really pretty on that one. And I'm using, I've got a little bit of spare thread that I don't want to lose. I'm using the called for flosses on this one. And again, not too many colours, so it makes it really affordable. And I think that will look so pretty when it's eventually made into a little pillow. I'm going to quickly check in my journal so that I can tell you. I don't know if by that point I've got out of the habit of popping them in the book. Token from my friend. No, it is in here. Yeah, note to self, start using your journal again, because it's really handy. It's a 36 count Weeks Confederate Grey fabric. I'm using all the called for Gentle Arts and Weeks Dye Works threads. I actually started this on the 6th of February this year. So because I put the dates in as well, you can just see the sort of information that I pop down on there. Stitch count, the fabric, all that kind of thing. And only 3 days before, it would appear, I started Harlequin Cove by Brenda Gervais. So yeah, this is a really useful tool actually. And of course you don't have to splash out on a purpose-made journal. You can get any notebook and just do essentially the same thing, can't you? Just use the first couple of pages as an index and just number the projects as you go along and do exactly the same thing. But of course, something that's ready-made takes all that extra work out of it for you. So let's pop this back in its super cute little project bag. And I think I would actually like to make some small ones like this, just for reference. I know sometimes when you hold things up to a camera, it can distort sort of like sizes. So yeah, it's quite a bit smaller than one of my normal size project bags. I'm going to pop that in the basket. And here we have another of my patchwork bags. This is another Liberty one, and a little bit sort of darker colours on this, and I've used a dark blue linen for the front and back again. Okay, this both of the Liberty bags have been lined with Liberty fabric as well. And I hope you don't mind me sharing the bags as well, because for me it's all part of the pleasure of a project to get everything kitted up and to have your floss and your pattern and your linen and a lovely project bag. I think just makes it a complete delight. And I still maintain that kitting projects up and making project bags is almost a separate hobby in itself, but I love everything about the whole process from start to finish. Okay, in here, well, this is a bit of a, I won't say an epic fail, but I really didn't get very far with this project at all. This is Where Flowers Bloom by Hands Across the Sea. And this was another project that I started as part of the Pocketful of Posies stitch along back in the spring. And I know that Elizabeth Ancan's stitch did really well with hers. And I've seen some beautiful versions of this, and mine has really fallen by the wayside. I'll show you where I am up to. And I think the problem with this project for me was that I was using silks for the first time. And as you can see from lots of my other projects, I use a lot of DMC. I do love the overdyed flosses, but I use a lot of DMC. It's easily accessible, it's affordable, the colour range is fantastic, you know, and it means you can stitch more things. But I splurged on this one, bought the Avera Soie d'Argent silks, which I've got in this little box. And, you know, they are a considered purchase to buy the silks. They are beautiful, but it made me so scared to mess up. I was just like really panicking about my stitching, which is silly really, because now all they're doing is sitting in this box. I tried using, I mean, I normally like using floss drops for my stitching. That makes things really easy for me. And everyone said, no, you mustn't put silk on floss drops because it will get all fuzzy. So I bought some of these little floss away bags, and I really couldn't get on with them. I just found it a real faff to get the thread out every time. So I abandoned that and thought, well, if I keep them in a little box that I just picked up in Hobbycraft, it's got a little lid, so it sits in the project bag quite neatly. I thought everything's out and ready to use, and they won't get fluffy or dusty or whatever in there. They're quite safe. But let me show you how far I got. And you must promise not to judge me on my measly start. And this is, now what fabric is this? It's even written on here. I think this is Legacy linen. So you can see how far I got or how far I didn't get. With this, it's a really, really tiny start. There are a lot of colour changes in the border. Yeah, and I think that combined with the thread, yeah, I just got all jittery about it, which is silly really, and I really must make a concerted effort to revisit this one, because I would love to have the finished project. I think it's really, really pretty. Let me see if I did write in my journal where that fabric was from, because it is so pretty. If it is Legacy Linens, then I would have got it from Hoop and Frame in the UK. No, I'd obviously abandoned my project book by that point, but I'm pretty sure it's the 32 count Legacy linen for that particular one. So I'm going to pop this away. Make sure it all goes back in tidily. But it is silly though, isn't it, to get nervous about what is just another cross stitch project. It really doesn't matter, and it's not the end of the world if you know, if it's not a perfect finish. I think I'm just putting too much pressure on myself for it to be absolutely a perfect piece by the end of it, but it won't be anything if it just sits in this bag. The pile is going down. We are getting somewhere. I have no idea where we're up to with the count. I will, as I said, we'll keep an eye on that at the bottom of the screen. But the next project I wanted to share with you is living in another of my patchwork bags, and this is actually the one that I used, made this, the patchwork panel, in the tutorial video. It's just got a little bit of the some spare squares, 2.5-inch squares that I had left on the back, so really fun. And living in here is, another one I'd forgotten about. Well, I hadn't forgotten about the project, but I didn't think that was what was in this bag. So let's have a little look at Strawberry Fields Forever by Blackbird Designs. Really rather beautiful. I love this pattern from the first time I saw it, and I started this as part of the Strawberry Social held by Jeanette and Heather of Crafty Cottage Stitches. And yet again I made a start and then I got distracted and it went away in the bag. So let's see how far I got on this one. A little bit more than the last project, so that's good. So you can see a start on the border and actually putting the strawberries in, and this is so pretty. The fabric I'm using for this was hand dyed by my lovely friend Paula of the Snail Garden, and bought from her Etsy shop, which is called Eva Faith, and I'll pop the information down in the description box below for you. And this is her 36 count linen in the catkin colourway, and you can see how much nicer Paula's mottling is than my own attempts at hand dyeing fabric. I think there's a real art in hand dyeing fabric. I think you can watch videos on YouTube and tutorials and you think, oh, that looks super easy, I can do that, and it really isn't easy to get these beautiful effects. Well, not for me anyway. Excuse me, I've got a tickly nose. I'm using a combination of called for and DMC on this one, all on thread drops, which is by far my preferred method of using my flosses. And I could say it for every single project, couldn't I? Just something that I really am keen to get back to because it's such a pretty piece. And it is, of course, I don't know if I mentioned at the start of the video, today is Sunday the 1st of August, so we are actually in Blackbird Weekend, which is the stitch along that's run by Brenda and Laura from Brenda and the Serial Starter Flosstube, who we all love. Yes, and always stitch a Blackbird project on the first weekend of every month. So I could keep that one out for later, couldn't I, and stitch on that this afternoon. The next project is living in a little organza bag from the Wool Warehouse. And if you're in the UK, they are really, I mean, they ship, I think they ship internationally, but they have a really good range of Zweigart linens and flosses and fabric now, as well as all the yarns that they always traditionally stocked. So well worth looking at if you need some Zweigart fabrics. And in here is, this is another Beth Twist design. I'm going to take it out of the pack so you can see. And this is a fairly recent WIP, and this is my grounding force, a sampler style. And down here is the little chair and the cross stitch, and obviously the little fairies grounded by her cross stitch. I think it's such a sweet design, really, really pretty. I'm not stitching mine on the dark fabric, I'm stitching mine on a piece of fabric that I over dyed myself. Again, it's not a huge amount of progress, just a little bit of border and a little bit of a flower here. That's as far as the border goes at the bottom before you start moving on to the house. So I've sort of got down to here, so then I'm going to carry on across, get all the border in place, and then start filling in the middle. This fabric is a 32 count XG Designs fabric that I bought. It was originally the seashell colourway and it was a little bit too pink, so I chopped the piece I had in half. I think it was a fat quarter, it might have been a fat half. Chopped it in half, zigzagged the edges, and then dunked it in some ground walnut shell dye to make it a little bit more sort of taupey and just to take some of the pinkness out of it, and I really like the colour of it now. And the flosses for this one are all DMC, and I've got them on my beautiful thread milk milk bottle caps, and my lovely little floss bling there from Laurie of Thread Milk Designs. Super pretty. Love the colour, excuse me, can't speak, the colour palette for this one. Really lovely. Okay, let's get this one away. So I don't know if you're all keeping an eye on that project count. But yeah, do let me know. Tell me in the comments how many projects you've got on the go, and so I can compare. I know that there are people, I've seen WIP parades where people have got a huge amount of WIPs, and I'm sure there are lots of you that are quite a bit more conservative. I know before I started cross stitching, I was an avid knitter at the time. Excuse me, I do have a tickly face. I was an avid knitter and I had an awful lot of knitting WIPs, and I wanted to do cross stitching, but I know the way my mind works, that I can't just work on one project from start to finish and not work on anything else. I know that won't happen, and that's what kind of put me off. I thought, oh well, I won't finish anything, so maybe cross stitch isn't for me. Little did I know that WIPs in cross stitch was as big a thing as it is for knitting. So, and yeah, here I am about 18 months later with a WIP parade for you all. So there's yeah, that's a bit of a shock to me, really. I'm just going to pause for 1 second and grab a drink, and I will be right back. On to my next project, which is living in another homemade by me with a few loose threads that I must snip off. This is a little quilted bag I made from Laurie Holt's Flea Market Flowers cheetah print. Quilted, a bit of rickrack, it's just the same fabric on the back, but I did add one of the beautiful charms from the same range. And there's no surprises to what's living in here. It is actually Flea Market Flowers. So that's this pattern by Laurie Holt, which is a relatively new start and very much all over Instagram and Flosstube at the moment. I think the stitch along might still be going on, might just be finishing up, but yes. So again, oh, I didn't get much done on this one. I got all the called for DMC, looking absolutely beautiful. I love the colours in this. They just look so pretty. You can see not much progress has happened on this by how neat the flosses still look. But I'll share with you what I've got done. And this is another piece of fabric that I had a go at hand dyeing. And this was a 32 count, just removing a loose thread there, Zweigart Murano. And you can see, look, I've not even finished the first flower. This is like crazy. The fabric is a little bit darker than it's shown in camera. Again, I used walnut crystals to dye it with, and there were a few little splotches here and there, but the area that I'm going to be stitching on, the splotches are mainly sort of down at the bottom, so I think we're going to be good at the top. But what I've done so far on it I really like, but I just really need to focus and get some more done on this one. It's quite a big piece of fabric as well, so I think I'll have quite a bit left over. I don't know what you all tend to do, but if I've got quite a lot of fabric, I will just save those pieces and just keep them all in a little basket in my sewing room, just for little smalls and little pillows and ornament sort of style things, because they come in really handy. Let's pop Flea Market back in the bag and put away tidily. I'm hoping it isn't going to rain. It's really come overcast here and it's been raining already this morning, so I'm hoping it doesn't get really rainy and really noisy in here, because the conservatory gets quite deafening when the rain hammers down, and we don't want any rain on this WIP parade, do we? Okay, another homemade project bag, and this is a project in itself. This was a pattern by Hands On Design called I Love My Stitching, and I stitched it up using colours to complement this Laurie Holt Vintage Happy fabric here, and added the rickrack and personalised it with my name here. And in here I have got another one that I'd forgotten about, and this is the, excuse me, Sew by Row cross stitch by It's So Emma, and obviously designed by Laurie Holt but published by It's So Emma. And I've also got the block of the month quilt for this particular design as well, which I'm looking forward to doing, so I thought they'd make really nice companion pieces in the sewing room. And I've got a little bit more progress on this one. Let me just show you the flosses first of all. It's all the called for DMC that I popped onto one of Laurie's beekeeper thread keepers. That's a really handy way of keeping everything organised. And I know that you can use little stickers on the back to mark down the colours. They do actually come with these little cards that you can write on the corresponding. Each hole is numbered, and you can write on the corresponding floss colour on the little card here, so I'll keep that in the bag. And then as for the actual stitching, I've got more done on this than I remember, so that's a pleasant surprise. Let's just pop it on the board here. So as you can see, onto row 3, and it was clearly those rather large sections of solid colour of the sewing machines that made me put it away for a little bit of a rest. So, but it's a really good substantial start on that, so if I can just get that third sewing machine done and move on to the next row, which is the quilt blocks, then I'll be really pleased, because I'll be sort of at the halfway point then. And I love the colour palette of this one, and I've got the little matching needle minder there that was designed to complement it. And again, lots of lovely versions of this I've seen on people's floss tubes and on Instagram. It's such a fun project. It's just all those, you know, I know Laurie calls them her happy colours, but they really are. It's something about it that's very, very cheerful to work on. We're making very good progress, guys. I think we have now 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 5 more projects to look at. Okay. Another little Amazon bag here. This was part of the strawberry social. I know exactly what's in here. I was going to stitch all the strawberry things and make a lovely display for the dining room in the summer, do the tiered tray with all little strawberry smalls, and everything was going to look super cute and pretty, and yep, didn't get it done. So in here I have, I'm trying to find the colour copy of the chart to show you. Sorry, I don't know what my hair's doing today. Okay, so this is the pattern. It's Berry Sweet. This is a home printed copy of a PDF. You can see it's still in the bag. It's a bit crumpledy. It's not very professional, is it, to be showing you all these crumpledy bits of paper. It's designed by cherryhillstitchery.com, and a really lovely design. I know that Vonna Pfeiffer did this, completed this and turned it into a strawberry, like a 3D strawberry finish, and it looked absolutely stunning. So I think when eventually mine is complete, I would like to have a go at doing that too. I've never finished anything as a strawberry, but I know she has an excellent tutorial on her YouTube channel, and I have literally done that, the beginning of the words in the middle. So that really wasn't a very good start at all, was it? I'm using DMC for this. Actually, they're a bit of a mishmash. I've got some Anchor in here, some Anchor colours, some DMC, and I think I just went to my stash and pulled out what was looking like the model in the photograph. But it goes nice. This is a Zweigart 32 count Belfast in raw linen, so I think that actually works quite well on there. So I'll pop that one away and then move on. It's so tempting to just throw these to one side. But I really can't do that to myself and end up with all that tidying up to do later on. And plus I worry that things would end up in the wrong bags and I'd end up with a really big mess. Next project up is in a beautiful project bag. And this is one that I bought on Etsy from Patchwork paw print, and you can see that just on the button here. And this is in Laurie Holt fabric, front and back. And it's the really nice heavier gauge vinyl. You can see the difference. It maintains its shape so much better. And this is a bit worrying. It doesn't feel like it's got any floss in here. Let's see what it is. Okay, I know why there's no floss in here now. There's the inside of the bag. How cute is that? With all the vintage sewing ladies and sewing machines. This is Prim and Proper from Laurie Holt. With Be in My Bonnet. Such a lovely design. Love the colours on this. I'm stitching mine on a 32 count, I think it's called Petit Point fabric, or it might be called Swiss Dots in some places. I'm not sure. I've heard it called both. And yeah, not too bad of a progress on this one. This is something else that I should really get back to. And I took a bit of a gamble stitching it on this fabric because I wasn't sure if the dots would be too distracting from the design, but I think because they are quite bold colours, it does actually work really well. Did I say it's a 32 count? This is Zweigart fabric. You can see again that little orange thread in the selvage. If you only learned that fairly recently, that's Zweigart always has that orange thread running through. And this is all being stitched in the called for Orifloss. And the reason I don't have the flosses in there is because I keep them in a little basket for when I'm stitching on the Prim Stitch series, because it uses the same, exactly the same flosses. So that's why I've kept this one without the flosses, because it wasn't being worked on. But that's absolutely fine. So I'll pop that back in there. I think that's why it's kept so neatly in the bag, because there's nothing to sort of bulge the bag out. Okay, because we were just talking about the Oriflosses, this is another little bag that I made, my little Union Jack bag from Tilda Fabrics, and this is just a little top zip one. And this is where my Prim Stitch series lives. And if I just get out my fabric first, and I'm going to give you a very quick run through of the patterns. I need to get those in order. Let me show you where I am first. Yeah, this is all stitched in the Orifloss, the Prim Orifloss pack that accompanies all the Prim designs by Laurie, and that's my progress so far. Yeah, just coming up to the halfway mark. The stitch along has finished. I haven't seen too many fully finished versions of this yet. I need to have a good look on Instagram and see, because it is such a pretty piece. You'll know if you're a regular viewer that I actually adapted the first pattern in the series. This was obviously the American flag here. I wanted to make it the Union Jack, so I did a little cheeky chart of my own. Just to, well, adapted a free chart that I found on Google is actually what I did, to fit the first chart. And I love this piece, but again, it's a lot of stitching, and this border, as beautiful as it is a bit of a beast, because obviously this has got to go all the way down and back round, and I'm only up to here. This is on the called for 25 count Lugana, and I'm using 2 strands of the Orifil Floss over 2, if I can get my words out. And I'll do a quick run through of the patterns. I'm not sure if I have all of them here. Let me just see. So that's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I've got 5 through 12 here that I'll share with you. The others I think must be in my pattern stash. So the number 5 is Beauty and Simplicity. Number 6 is the one that I'm yet to complete, is Home and Hearth. Number 7 with the little chapel is Faith and Endurance. Number 8 is Pleasant and Gentle, and I love the sheep. He's so cute. Number 9 is Welcoming and Cheerful with the pineapple and the lovely little bird on the, I think they must be like stacked up shaker boxes. Really cute. Number 10 is Love and Friendship with the pretty little kitty cat and the sunflowers. Number 11 is Gratitude and Grace with the pears. The blue look like cornflowers and the pears on the lovely little cake stand there. And finally, I think this is one of my favourites, the Hands and Heart to God, which is the final block in the series. So I'm really looking forward to finishing that one. And as I have mentioned before when I've shared it on my regular Flosstube episodes, I plan to make this into a sort of quilted wall hanging. I bought a charm pack of some Lorry Holt fabric, and I'm going to do 2.5 inch squares of patchwork around the edge to make a border, and then just very loosely sort of hand quilt, just sort of tie quilt at the intersections with some little buttons that I've got, just to sort of pull it together and then use it as a wall hanging. And I'm really looking forward to that. I just need to find the time to get the stitching done. So I know it isn't a race, and I know that it's something to sit and savour and enjoy, but sometimes there is a sneaky part of me that wishes that you could just really crank it up a gear and just whiz on through with some, particularly when there's sort of quite large areas of stitching that you need to do. So I'll pop that one back in the bag, and then we are down to our last 2 projects to look at. So I hope you've been enjoying seeing everything I've been sharing with you today. It's been really nice for me too to go through everything and just revisit them and get enthusiastic again about projects that you'd almost forgotten that you had, or you know, that for whatever reason you put down. Okay, the next one is in my strawberry bag. Again, this is a fairly recent WIP, and this is still on the hoop. This is naughtiness. Flosses all DMC, a little bit tangled, so this is actually being stitched on. And this is the Hello Sunshine stitch along. As I said, this is, I literally was working on this at my mum's. It's still in. And this is a little cheapy plastic hoop that I bought in Hobbycraft, and it gives such good tension. It's not the most attractive of hoops, but it's really practical. And this is my Hello Sunshine stitch along from Caterpillar Cross Stitch. Lovely little toucan needle winder there. And this section that I'm just starting here is actually him. This is his little branch that he sits on. So I'll be stitching him just there, and then I shall fill in with some leaves and flowers. Part 3 is already out, and I think from memory, obviously I can't show you the chart, but I think from memory that has some sort of dragonfly or some beautiful insect, colourful insect in it. So I will probably cheat and pop that in, and then, as I said, fill in with all the beautiful leaves and flowers of that one. So that is incredibly good fun, especially while the sun's been shining, although not so much today. Okay. Has anyone spotted what's missing so far? I thought I'd save my absolute favourite project until last, and it is living in this project bag made by me from Rifle Paper Company fabric, and I put a little bit of vintage lace and silk seam binding on the zipper there, and in here is my Anniversaries of the Heart. And this is something that I love beyond all my other projects. Absolutely love this project. And it really is a labour of love. I can't see. Originally I had grand plans to do one block. There's 12, no, there are 14 patterns in the series. And of course you can choose to stitch them all as one large piece, which I've chosen to do. Very much inspired and enabled by Olivia from Pumpkin Hollow Quilts. If you haven't seen Olivia's completed Anniversaries of the Heart, where have you been? But seriously, if you haven't seen it, do go across to her Instagram or her Flosstube channel and have a little look and just soak up the beauty of that piece. It is absolutely breathtaking. Shall I show you mine? It hasn't been stitched on for a while, it's been neglected. It was a combination of mania and Jolly July and all that has distracted me from this, but I really do love it beyond everything else. I'm stitching this on a huge piece. This is a, can I get it all in? This is a half-yard piece of legacy linen in the pecan, oh, should I check my book? It's pecan something, I think it's pecan shortbread, but I will check in my book because I can't actually remember. 30 count legacy linen pecan shortbread, and I got that from Hoop and Frame in the UK, but I know that Hoop and Frame are, I think they're primarily a US based company, but you can, if you're UK based and you want to buy fabric from them, they ship, you don't get any customs charges or anything like that. Okay, I digress. So this is a huge piece. I won't need it to be this big, obviously. There's going to be a lot left, but I wanted to have no fears or worries about this not fitting on the fabric. I didn't want to do what I did with my All Creatures Great and Small. This will be a piece that I definitely get professionally framed once it's all done, whenever that might be. Yeah, as I mentioned, I did plan to get one block done a month and try and get it finished in just over a year, but that clearly isn't going to happen. But it's absolutely fine. I've made my peace with it and I know I will finish it at some point. But you can see, so we've got block 1, which is Snow Garden. Block 2 is, I can't remember. This is one of the bonus blocks here, which is an alphabet block. This is the, have I got that one here? Yeah, I have actually got that pattern here. This is A Wish for You. These are all Blackbird designs, by the way. And of course you can, if you particularly like one, you can just stitch it as a standalone piece. You can stitch as many as you want together. It's absolutely up to you, but I just really liked the setting of the whole thing together. And I've just made a start on Pink Hill Manor here, which is pattern number 4. If you follow the months of the year, so this would be the April block, but of course by adding in the bonus blocks it does sort of kind of throw that out a little bit, but that is fine. I've used mostly called for, but with some changes, because, and again, if you're a regular viewer of my Flosstube, I don't want to keep repeating myself and boring you all to tears, but these patterns are quite old now. I think round about, well, this one here, Pink Hill Manor, is 2010. So the dye lots and the dyeing style and perhaps processes of the overdyed floss companies has changed considerably, and some of the colours that are listed in these patterns, when you buy those colour names now, can look very, very different from what's portrayed on the model in the photograph. So sometimes you need to be a little bit creative with your colour choices, and particularly to make sure that they sit well on your linen and sit well with the blocks that are either side of them. So some of them I've tried to use colours that flow, so I've used some of the same colours going across the piece, just so that nothing really sort of jars and stands out too badly or too sort of obviously. The block that I'm stitching at the moment, I'm using a combination of Classic Colourworks and Gentle Arts and a couple of DMCs thrown in there for good measure. You can see it's a typical Blackbird colour palette, really soft antique colours, absolutely beautiful. So that has brought us to the end of my WIP Parade, and it has been an absolute joy to share everything with you all today, and it's been a joy to discover and rediscover my projects, and thank you ever so much for sharing all that with me today. if you've got any questions, you can pop them down in the comments below. If you wanted to contact me by email, you can find that in the description box below as well. And I will of course be back next week with episode 20, which will be a regular Flosstube episode. So I will see you all again then. But thank you for stopping by and take care. Bye.